Hello and welcome to a very good social media podcast where we try to live up to that name every single day. I'm Zach Gelia. Let's get into it. So today, kick things off, get things started, had to keep things local, had to keep things black and gold, bring on a fellow Yinzer would be the only way to do this properly. So blessed and honored to have Vice President of Marketing and Digital with the Pittsburgh Penguins, Andi Perelman, on the show today. Andi is someone that I've known for a very long time and someone who means a lot in my career and my growth, and someone who's been a resource and almost a mentor to me in everything that I've been doing. The Penguins, not only one of my all-time favorite sports teams, but a team that I was constantly looking to for inspiration and how they did things when I first got into the industry, and even continues to this day. Looking at them and looking at their presence on social and just their strategy and how they handle things, good and bad, has always been something that I've valued and admired. And having the person behind those accounts for so long to bounce ideas off of, to ask advice of, has been an incredible journey. Andi is someone who, without her, I probably wouldn't be back in Pittsburgh, in the city I love, and repping the black and gold. So, there's a lot that I have learned from her, and a lot that I hope that you can learn from her. Her journey was a lot different than mine, and a lot different than, everyone's journeys are different. So, being able to just learn how she got to where she's been, someone who is stuck with the same organization for a very long time that you don't really see very often. So, just learning from her and her journey and her advice, and in the position that she's in, she's hired a lot of people and spent a lot of time in reviewing resumes and on the job boards and things like that. So definitely wanted to bring her on and get this thing started, especially from that perspective where she's been a leader for a very long time, brings a different viewpoint than I do, than other leaders do, just because of how we've kind of grown up in our careers. And me coming from more of a creator background, her coming from more of a marketing, technical, organizational background, and seeing how everyone can succeed, and there's a place for everybody in this industry. No matter what your skill set is, it's about finding what you do best and really growing and learning is all you can. So I'm very, like I said, very blessed and honored to have Andi as part of this podcast. And I don't know that I would be able to live up to that very good name without having a very good first guest. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome Andi Perelman to the show. All right, Andi, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't talked, probably not in a couple months, maybe, but it's always good to catch up.
Yeah, I mean, you're an OG, Zach, so always happy to talk social with you. And a Pittsburgher, for sure.
Yeah, that's got to have the Yins hat on for sure. Well, like I feel like we had to have crossed paths when I was like very first with the Steelers in like 15, because I swear we did like it was like a Berg Proud something where like me and Terry at the time, who was with the Pirates, like went to a Pens game, then we went to a Steelers game, and it was like that was my first, I think, like introduction to everybody in like the Pittsburgh Yinzer social world.
Good times. Yeah. The best of times.
Yeah. I feel like
Pittsburgh's crazy like that. I feel like no other city has anything like that.
It's always like we tried to do more of that when I was with the Cardinals, but it's just like there isn't that. I don't know. It's like if you're a Suns fan, you're not necessarily a Cardinals fan, and like they're kind of like independent fan bases. Where in Pittsburgh, it's just like if you're from Pittsburgh or you love a Pittsburgh team, you love all of them.
Black and gold.
Yeah, for better or worse. But well, cool. Well, honestly, I wanted to open up the floor to you to get this started, of just, going from Mount Lebanon High School. I do want to talk about a semester at sea that I saw on your education history, because that sounds amazing. But basically just from Mount Lebanon High School to, VP of Marketing and Digital with the Penguins, how did you get where you are, and tell us, take us through your journey and just how this all happened.
Sure. So probably like most high school kids, I really had no idea what I wanted to do when I was going to college. That definitely carried into my college career, where I also had no idea what I wanted to do. At that point in time, social media was not at all on the radar as a career. I barely like existed at all. So um, maybe it's good I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I could figure it out when the time came. But I ended up going to University of Maryland. I wanted a big school, a state school. I was interested in government politics, which ended up being my major. So I like the idea of being close to DC, um, and not too close to home, but close enough to get home. So I guess I just kind of started following my passions, trying different things, worked some internships, some summer jobs. And eventually, when I was graduating and I was still a little confused what I wanted to do, I ended up going to a grad school fair and I talked to some current students and the dean of a sports industry management program at Georgetown. So through that, I thought I love sports. I think this sounds cool. I don't think I want to go to law school, which was something I was considering. And I ended up applying to Georgetown, getting in, and then doing more internships and figuring out more about what I wanted to do. At that point, social media was becoming a bit of a career option, but it also was primarily like intern responsibility time. I'm sure you remember it well. People still forget that we are out of that time.
Yep.
But gave me a lot of responsibility to run a lot of social in my internship stage. And yeah, just learned a lot from my teachers, made a lot of connections. And then when I graduated, I knew I wanted to work in marketing and social. That's specifically what I was studying in school. Then worked at an ad agency in Pittsburgh for a little while and just really was hoping that the right thing would pop up. I was kind of ready to go anywhere for the right job, and then like the perfect dream job scenario, like the gates of heaven opened and like this social media entry-level job was posted at the Penguins, and I was so excited, and I had been writing a hockey blog, and that was like still a thing then. Writing for Bleacher Report, which is not what then was nothing like what it is now. And I applied and got the job, and that was 10 years ago. So making moves ever since, just growing with the team and learning things as I go and messing up and hiring more people and figuring it out. So yeah, just I guess that's
That's
the
awesome.
short story. Yeah.
Yeah, I think messing it up and figuring it out, I think that's like the tattoo for anyone who works in this industry is that's how it works. But
Yep.
well, it's always
Definitely part of it.
yeah, and it's always good to hear from just everyone about their experience because it's like back when we were kind of getting into our careers, it was like what we're currently doing wasn't a career, you know? Like I think I've told this story before, but like I got a job at the local speedway when I just got out of college. I like coached some hockey. Like I didn't know what I wanted to do,
Hmm.
but trying to connect, the creative artsy side with the sports side obviously wasn't good enough to play any sort of pro hockey at that time and
Not
probably
for
good
me either. Yeah.
good for my body. But so I got the job. I thought it was like a video production role. Like I planned on going to film school until I saw how much money it cost, and then got into the job, made a couple cool videos on YouTube, and then got had a meeting with my boss where she was like, "You're really not living up to expectations. We thought you would take over all these social accounts by now." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't even know that was part of it, but consider it done." And so it's like when anyone asks me, "How did you get in the industry?" It's like, well, almost by accident, but it was amazing and perfect that it happened.
Yeah. It is wild how many people have stories like that of like kind of finding yourself here and then figuring it out as you go. And I mean, these platforms just weren't anything like what they are today. There weren't as many of them, and you couldn't do as much. So yeah, it's interesting. Everyone's skill sets, I think, that work in social, it's a little bit different. Like I'm definitely not a video editor, which is why I have a video editor on my team, right? And so yeah, you kind of fill in the gaps now that it's like such a big part of the strategy and the monetization of what the organization is doing. So
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's so crazy to think of. Like, I remember, I feel like with the NFL social media policy back then, it was like we could only post like one video a day on Twitter because video was so new. So it was like we were converting like practice clips to GIFs, and like it was just
so crazy.
the weirdest things to think of now that, what we do on each platform. And it's so crazy.
Yeah, do you remember? I forget what account it was, but somebody was like drawing pictures,
Yeah.
like and just like putting those out because you couldn't post the actual highlights.
Yep.
I think like at that time too, didn't the Steelers have their social department was like part of technology and like IT, right?
Yep.
And like,
My first, I don't know if he was necessarily my boss, but he was kind of like the big boss. But
yeah,
he's still there. Scott Phelps. He's the VP of IT, and you'll see him like during Steelers games. He's the guy standing behind Coach Tomlin, like with a headset on, making sure like the tech's working. And I'm like, this is the guy who hired me to run social, because that's who,
wild.
it was like three people who would just kind of chip in when they could. And it was like, and now it's like we have whole teams that do this stuff, which is so crazy.
Yeah, I feel like for a long time, teams are trying to figure out if social belonged in like sponsorship, marketing, PR, technology. So yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
feel that long ago, but a lot has changed for sure.
Yeah. And I swear, every organization you talk to, it's a little bit different. Like the team's set up a little different, the reporting structure is different. And it's like before it was, oh, well, we have a person and they'll do whatever we need.
Yeah, we have an intern this
Yeah,
semester.
we're good. Well, so from somebody who has bounced around a little bit and basically left my hometown to come right back to my hometown, I'm always fascinated by like someone like you who could be at a company for 10 years and have that amazing growth and really, develop and continue to move up the ladder and lead and take on more responsibility. So I mean, maybe just take me through, how, maybe not how it happens, but like just your journey within the Penguins.
Yeah, so I think I've been really lucky, right? I think there's a lot of people that bounce around in general to just move up and learn more. And I've had the same boss my entire time at the Penguins. So well, there was like a 6 month period where there was somebody kind of between us, but
Yeah.
for the most part, I've been reporting to the same manager for my whole time at the team. But um, I've had a lot of people that have really valued what I bring to the table and have given me an opportunity to share my opinions and what I know. And, coming in pretty young out of grad school, you don't always get that opportunity. And, having a CEO and president who really valued social and thought there was a lot of opportunity there, having people who said, in my department, hey, this isn't my expertise. Like, you should take the lead on this, even as a coordinator, as a manager. So I think just seizing those opportunities, and then when I had them, and I was lucky enough to have them. So not saying, here's what I think is best without sharing why and some stats and data behind these things, making sure that if I'm being looked to as an expert, that I actually have something to say. And if there's a question, I'm not just like, I don't know, like you make the choice, like, and not kind of stepping up. That's definitely like a comfortable place for me. I always have opinions. So like I had to figure out like when to share and when to like take a step back. And yeah, I mean, just figuring things out in the workplace is always interesting, and I think I've learned a lot, and I've definitely, as we were talking about before, like made a lot of mistakes and things that I've kind of regretted, kind of looking back, or like looked at like certain posts or things that I thought were like a really great idea, and I stood behind and like, what was I like thinking? But you learn from them, and I think that's how you move up, is just like owning the shit that's not good, and then learning
Yeah.
from it and getting better. So
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, and it's crazy, the longer I'm in this and the different like more leadership roles that I have, I can look back and see like, oh man, I really didn't handle some of this stuff really really well.
Yeah, I think there's things too where it's like you just I mean, the last couple years have been so wild of like how things have changed on social and how the world has changed and how social and sports is like such a big part of everything going on in the larger landscape, right? Like before social was like an afterthought and now it's being sold into partnerships. It's essential for ticketing and revenue, but it's also essential for getting out a message on like the most important things that your team can comment on and how say things matter and when you say things matter and how you manage maybe personal feelings about something and then team feelings about something or players feelings about something and it just social wasn't just it just wasn't like that as much a few years ago. So there's always new things to learn for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, like you look at like what's the Chargers tweet that was like, so hungry, you're gonna go to get my wife or
Yeah.
go to PF Chang's or something like that was like looking back. I remember when we hit 1 million followers on Twitter with the Steelers way back when, like looking back at what the first like tweets were, and
Mhm.
it's so crazy to see where it was like, I can't even remember what it was, but it was something of just like, you know, we play the Ravens on Sunday. And it's like, cool. Yeah, I'm pretty sure people knew that. But it's like everyone's just I mean, you look at threads now and it's like people just
Crazy.
throwing anything they can against the wall, seeing what sticks, and then keep on moving.
Hmm.
But oh man. Well, this is my favorite question. So I have to ask you, because it's the one I get every time I talk to anyone, is what is a typical day in your in
It's
your
I have
life?
heard that question many times in
Yes.
interviews for sure. Well, I'm sure you and everyone in sports everywhere would say there is no typical day in sports. I think we kind of break it up into here's a regular game day, here's a regular non-game day during the season, and here is a regular maybe off-season day without an event.
Yeah.
And there are similarities in all of those things, but then there are always things that can pop up and completely derail a social media day, whether it's with your team, a specific player, um, ownership, a coach, a world event, anything can kind of stop every plan you had and completely pivot you somewhere else. So I think there are normal things we have. We have a project management system that kind of has a list of everything we need to go through for each day. It's very flexible. So, anytime we have a partner and they want certain content, we might plan for it. And we say, hey, this can go out anytime over the course of this 2 week span. Like we will update the rules if it's a contest, and we'll let you know if you need advance notice, maybe an hour. But ultimately, we're on this like roller coaster of the team and last night we win but before that we're losing like terribly and like the emotion of our fan base and the willingness to consume certain types of content is massively shifting all the time. So yeah, lots of stats, lots of things that are kind of like normal, like every game day there's a bit of a cadence of certain things that have to go out, but ultimately everything is just like flexing around all the time. So
Yeah. It's always organized chaos is what I always say. It's
organized
like
chaos.
we plan for everything we can, but then, 2 seconds later, we may have to redo the entire week of what we had planned.
Totally.
But yeah, but I always have to ask the typical day. And then my other favorite one, I won't ask you this because we all know this one, but it's like, what do you do in the off season? It's like, well, there really isn't much of an off season.
No, there's a couple months where we are not playing hockey.
And that's it. Yeah.
It is not really it's
Yeah.
not like off season.
It's just
We are
no
not
games to
off
cover. Yeah.
during off season.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh man.
just so everyone knows, I don't need to answer that whole question, but
Yeah.
yes,
Well, that's
work is busy.
yes, all the time. It's like it's planning and strategy and recap season, or it's game coverage season. There's no off season. It's just a full blown season at all times.
Always.
Yeah. Oh man, I remember the first vacation I tried to take when I was with the Steelers after my first season. was like, I'm going to go up to Canada to see my fiance at the time, now my wife, who lives outside of Toronto. And I was like, I'm going to go up. I was still the only person who did any posting or anything on social. So I was like, I'm going to go up. I'll check back in once I get there. And I think I was 2, maybe 3 hours into the drive, and Heath Miller came into the building and said he was going to retire. And so,
That's big news too.
yes, so I like pulled over to the side of the highway, and I'm just on the phone with my bosses for like an hour talking about like, what do we do? Who's going to post it? What graphics do we need? Because I was editing all the graphics at the time too. So it was like, it was nothing that we could have planned for. It was just like this thing that came out of nowhere happened. Good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we all carry our computers around, like in our department, everywhere we go. Like I'll go out to a family dinner, and either I will have my backpack and my computer, or I will have texted my whole team, is someone available from like 6 to 8? I'm going out with my family. Like I will have my phone. Is someone around in case something goes down? And until I get that yes, that backpack and computer is absolutely coming with me. My team knows when I'm on a flight. They know when I'm in a movie theater. They know where I am at all times, and I know where they are too. Like, we're right now, it's holiday season, right? Like I know who's flying when, who's driving, who is completely unavailable, having dinner with their grandmother or their sister-in-law or whatever.
Yeah.
Because at any moment something can happen and we need to be ready, even if we're off, like this is not
you're always on call. That's
always
for sure.
on call. I mean, it's funny, it's like on call, which sounds like so serious and like a doctor or like somebody who really needs to be on call, but ultimately like they are, like the team is relying on us in that same capacity. I don't think it's always quite as serious as some other people that are on call, but it is important that we're there. So
Yeah, no, I agree. I know we're definitely not saving lives or doing brain surgery by any
not
means.
usually.
But yeah, but there's a lot that goes into it. It's funny. Well, so going into kind of like the strategy side of it, we talked a little bit about like the unplanned. That's such a big part of what we do. It's planning for the things that are coming up, and then how do you plan for the stuff that isn't on the calendar? And so like maybe take me through your process of like how do you stay organized but flexible, like you were talking about, in the best way?
Yeah, so we have a project management tool called Workfront. So I think that's the first thing, is having some tool to keep all of the requests organized. And that's what we use it for. So whether it's ticketing needing promotion for a specific game, or a new partner is being sold and they need ideas for digital, social, or an upsell, or I don't know, big events coming up and we all want to plan in one place. We have like Yager's jersey retirement is coming up. A lot of things are going to go into that night, and all of the things that we are doing in-game and digital and PR wise, and specifically with him and with partners, and being able to kind of see all of those things and figure out how they fit together is a big part of social, because you need to make sure you're there to cover the event. You have the right graphics, the right logos, you know what you have rights to. So yeah, that's a big part of it, is organization, specifically for us in a project management tool, is really helpful. And we don't have like a calendar per se, but the project management tool has like planned completion dates, and they're always adjustable. So I have everything that's due for today, and if I need to move something to tomorrow, I can comment in there and say why, and we can move it back 3 weeks if something gets pushed. But yeah, keeping organized in a sports social media landscape is definitely a task. I write out a written to-do list every day, in addition to my digital to-do list, just because not everything comes in as a request. There are a lot of things that kind of need to get looked at and figured out, and it's hard. You definitely need to be organized. I think that's essential if you're managing a digital team these days in sports.
Yeah. No, the amount of shared documents that I have with like my team
Oh
and
my
our
gosh.
content team and our marketing team, and even like you said, like checklists for me of like, I need to get this stuff done instead of my team. It's just, it's so crazy.
It is so crazy. Yeah, there's so many moving parts. I mean, I think about how many projects we're all working on, and I mean, we have specific campaign projects, right? So we have ticketing campaigns that are going on, and something like the Yager campaign, and it's like there are so many of those big campaigns with so many individual tasks and pieces in there going at one time, and they are all swapping all the time to the next thing. So we might be running like a Festive Five ticketing deal right now, and it's like, okay, on December 27th, like maybe I'm off that day, but it needs to come out of the app that day and then move immediately to a new app card. And then we need to pull out a banner ad and report on a social post. And yeah, it is essential to have some kind of tool because it is
Yeah.
way, way, way too much stuff to manage by memory.
Well, and in sports too, it's like social is, it's kind of in this middle, not gray area, but it's kind of like you draw a spider web. It's like social ends up in the very middle, and it's like partnerships and ticketing and community and the players and baseball ops and like all of these different things all feed into basically, depending on how big your team is, there may be, two, maybe four, maybe six people who are like, all right, well, we have to basically manage all of the goals and all of the needs across the whole organization on top of what your goals are on social and what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I think you were talking about it before. It's like finding something that's creative, but then also like analytical. And I think social is like right in, not only in the middle of the organization, but like right in between that, like left brain, right brain. Like you're doing so much creative and so much ideation of video ideas and content. And then there's so much reporting and like really looking at like, did this work and why did this work? And how could this look on like a specific platform? And why should we make a slight adjustment to make this um, better for the future, better for an algorithm change or whatever is going on. So I think it's interesting. Sometimes I'm in meetings where I'm like, I know what everyone is about to report on because we are so central to like any big thing going on in the organization. Social usually is touching it, and like obviously for me, like overseeing some marketing and digital stuff too. It's like even if social's not part of it, website is part of it, or the app is part of it, or we're marketing it in some capacity on email or whatever. And it's interesting and it helps you learn a lot. I think that's why so many people who started in social kind of got thrown into like figuring out what to do at the very beginning of the social employee days are becoming leaders within their organizations in marketing, right? They say like the next CMOs are all like become from like a digital space. And um it's I mean it's crazy, but it's also like throwing you right into the fire. Is like this is how you learn best and you know what the organization's trying to do. So
Yeah, for sure.
I love it. I mean, it's wild, but
Well, and it's scary too. Like, there's so much out of your control too, right? Like, not only with like the team and the performance and the players and things like that and world events, but also like the platforms, like the places where we post stuff and reach all the fans. Like, they could change at a moment's notice. Something new gets brought to the table. Like, it's just it could be so stressful and just like crippling anxiety thinking about it, but it's like it's just part of your day of like, yeah, well, we got to figure it out.
yeah, like how many social platforms have you like downloaded on your phone thinking this might be the next big thing and like just squatting on like a certain account
Yep.
name? Oh my God, I had so many that I was like, this is gonna be it. Like I downloaded it and I'm like, this is great. Like I'm trying it out personally, seeing like if this is gonna catch on. No, never.
Mm-mm.
It never is the one that catches on. You never know
No,
what's coming.
never. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's hard too because it's like if one of the platforms, like say X, Twitter, like just disappears from the planet, it's not like the
Which is
pirates
a
and
real fear.
yes, which could very well happen. But like it's not the Penguins and the Pirates that are going to be like, all right, well now we're going to update fans here. It's going to be your fans are going to go somewhere and you're going to have to meet them there, which is, again, it's just there's so much out of your control that you just have to figure out.
Totally. Yeah, and then these platforms, you might have a strategy and want to do something a certain way, and like midway through the season, you'll have an approved graphic or strategy for something, and the platform changes and you just can't do it that way anymore. And you're like, okay, hey, like this thing we agreed upon at the beginning of the year that we've been doing for a couple months, no longer a thing. And that's not our fault. Like this is just how the platform has changed. And yeah, you got lots of adapting for sure.
Yeah. Well, and it's not even just about like making the best content too. It's about making the best content that the platform wants you to make. Like if you know that, TikTok, I had an alert that said like, you should share more photos on TikTok. The performance is better. It's like, well,
Yeah.
there's your like cheat code to say, okay, well, I guess we need to do more of that on TikTok because they're telling us that this is what they want to see. And if TikTok wants to see it, they're going to push it to more people.
Which is like wild because those things can be so widely different in how much time and effort goes into them, right? So like you might already have a photographer somewhere taking photos. You can kind of cut them and put them on TikTok. But do you remember when live streaming was like the thing that everyone was pushing? It was like, oh my God, live streaming everything? Like, okay, do we need, like, are we live streaming from phones? Are we live streaming from cameras? How is the audio? Do we all need external microphones that are connecting to these cameras and phones? Like, if we're live streaming, do we need a mount for the phone? Do we need like a
Yep.
table? Because now if we're live streaming coach every day, what if he's talking for 15 minutes and you're like there like, oh my God, I remember like putting phone like on the back of a chair and like trying to like balance and be comfortable. But yeah, I mean, it definitely changes all the time. Like this season, I don't know if you're seeing the same thing, but on Facebook, we're seeing video like way down from viewership,
Yeah.
but then photos, text only, like links way up. And I feel like for years they've said, we want video, we want long form video,
Yep.
and it's not working.
Yeah. Oh man, that just gave me just flashbacks of standing. I remember every day after practice at training camp with the Steelers, I would have to live stream Coach Tomlin's press conference on the field, holding my phone on Instagram Live. And it was just like you said, he'd talk for 5 minutes one day and the next day he'd talk for 25. And you're just like, oh, come on.
I know. And like things too, where you're holding a microphone maybe, and then you're holding a recorder, and then you need to take a photo and you like try and put the recorder and the microphone together and like try and take out like something for the phone. Sometimes it gets kind of crazy because people don't see what all that looks like in the background. Yeah. There's like a photo of me with like, I forget, I don't remember what it was. There was some event where it was like I had my camera, I had my phone, and then I had those like Snapchat spectacles on, and I was like recording in like 100 different ways at the same time. You just never know when something's gonna pop up, and you have to be ready. And it's
yeah. Well,
oh my God, yeah,
if you find that photo, send it to me, and it will be displayed right now on the podcast.
Okay.
All right. So, as someone who has had a lot of different roles in the organization and someone who's moved up quite a bit, do you have any advice for leaders out there? Because that was like the biggest like wake up call for me was, being someone for the first half of my career that was the doer. And, I was boots on the ground. I was editing graphics. I was doing all of this stuff. Then when I got to Arizona with the Cardinals, it was like, well, no. You don't have to do all the stuff you're good at. You have to lead the people and be good at something different. And it was like, oh, this is really, really hard. So like any advice that you have that I wish I knew when I went to Arizona?
Yeah, it is hard. I think everyone's different, but being able to separate yourself and figure out which things are worth taking time for big picture and which things are worth getting in the weeds and helping people, if they on your team, if they need it, and then taking a step back when they like really don't need it. And I think finding that balance is important, and talking to your people is essential for figuring out how that works. Not everybody is the same, and I have now a big team of people, and some people want me to show them more and want me to walk through it with them, and other people are like, let me make mistakes, let me figure this out on my own, like I'll loop you in if I need you. And all of that is okay. And I think it's just, yeah, it's just feeling things out as you go and making sure that you're there to help and assist. Like you never want someone to feel like, a one-person social team because it's so overwhelming. So I've been trying to be really flexible, especially now that we have more flexibility with work from home and a lot of people on my team are not from Pittsburgh. So like when can they be in a different place working and doing their job, but also kind of refilling their personal like buckets and making sure that they're a whole happy person. And I think for a long time there were a lot of social managers who were quitting and just not having other jobs and saying like this is too much. Like I'm overwhelmed and I can't keep doing this for the rest of my life. If I want, a life outside of this, if I want a family one day, like this is impossible. And I think I'm focused on trying to figure out how to have a team that's big enough that we can help each other, and then enough people know each other's jobs that we can kind of step in and pinch hit where needed.
For sure. Yeah, and like because burnout is so like it's something I didn't even know what it was when I was burnt out. It was just kind of like, oh no, that's the job. Like that's how it is. And then, you get to a leadership role and it's like, I forget the quote. Like I've been doing a lot of leadership research and and learning and trying to be better every day. But it was like, I think the quote, it's like, it's not about you, but it's all about you. And it's like, it's such a funny kind of back and forth where it's like, your job is to make sure that the people working for you and underneath you are growing and thriving and making sure that, just like you said, they're not, coming into work burnt out, no creative ideas, no juices, just trying to get through the day. It's like, how do you do that while also making sure that all of the stuff that needs done gets done? And so that's always the balancing act of like trying to get your own stuff done, but also making sure that you're available and helping, helping the rest of your team.
It's really hard. It's really hard. There are things that for sure take a lot of work, and again, like you mess them up so many times and you're like, oh, like I'm sorry, like I was busy today. I should have made more time, for you, or like, sorry, like I couldn't give you like a good attitude when we're like brainstorming together because I'm run down.
Right.
And like just being honest and yeah, just doing your best. You're just trying to keep figuring it out. I feel like I've read a lot of leadership books and things too, and it's just I think the most recent one was saying something about like how important it is to really talk to your employees about things they care about outside of work, and like making sure that you're interested in their lives if they want to be sharing personal parts of their lives, and how important that is. And it's not like trivial, right? Like it's like essential for building trust in your work. And it's hard when you have so many things to get done on the to-do list, right? You're like, oh my God, like do I really need to like sit down and talk to somebody about like the new video game they just bought that I don't care about, but they really care about it. And like, but yes, like it is. And we try and do that a little bit during the game. Like I'll talk to my employees about things that aren't happening on the ice. We'll try and like, just, have fun and feel like we're watching a game and like doing something we love. And it's hard. It's hard managing people.
Yeah. Well, and it's like you brought up a good point of like it almost like you don't want it to become transactional almost of like you're here to do what I need you to do. And that like it kind of expands over to the players too, because that's always a big thing with me is like I just want to like come down and say hi, see how you're doing, see you later. I never want it to be like every time you see me, it's like, oh man, I got to duck in a hallway because he's going to ask me to do something. So it's like playing off of your team of employees and then also then playing off of, the personalities of the players who are getting all the shine.
Totally. And you want to build those relationships and make them comfortable with you. But then also like as a woman, you don't want to be too friendly and like make it seem that it's not a professional atmosphere. And I think it's all an interesting balance of, when are you like having fun and hanging out and when are you working and how do you make sure you're getting the most of everyone around you. And, that just, it's all about trust. It's all about building trust, right? So
couldn't agree more.
yeah.
Well, so now that we're on the subject of how could Andy have helped Zach before he got to Arizona, is there for the people out there who are just trying to get into the industry, is there something that you wish you knew back then when you were first kind of getting into the zone?
I think I just wish I knew myself better and what my strengths and weaknesses are. And, you go into a job like this and you're tweeting to like millions of people and you have to be like confident, but it's important to be self-aware and not so confident that you're not, making sure to learn from people who know more than you. So I think for me, figuring out what those things are and what things were important to me in my job to make sure that I was getting those things out of my job. I love knowing answers to questions. I like making sure that everything is set up and right and like ready to go. But we were talking about it before, like flexibility in this job is essential. And sometimes you don't know things and you can't know when certain things are going to happen. We always say, like at the Penguins, like hurry up and wait. Like we want to be in the right place and be ready for whatever might happen. And then we might be waiting there for a while and things might not come together exactly the way that we anticipated. But it's not like be here this time on the dot. Like here's exactly how something's going to run, like an event brief. Never. Yeah. So I think being, more comfortable with the ambiguity of all of that and not asking so many times, like, what do you need from me? Like, where should I be? What am I doing? And just kind of like flowing with things, being more go with the flow. So I think just knowing yourself and asking mentors or people who are working with you or for you or you're working for, like, okay, hey, like, how am I doing? Like, be honest with me. Like, what things am I doing that are not helping the organization or are very annoying for you to work with? And I think those are going to be different for everybody. But I think making sure that you're figuring out what those things are and then working on them to get better. I think also it's just having a good attitude. Like a lot of people in sports feel super overwhelmed with their jobs because there's a lot going on. And if you're coming with a positive attitude, even if you don't know everything or, you're maybe feeling overwhelmed at school, if you're an intern or something and you're getting in there, like just being like, hey, like I'm here, like I'm ready to learn, or maybe like, hey, I'm feeling overwhelmed today, but I'm excited to like get started on something new, and just trying to bring a good vibe and a good attitude is, I think, can't be overstated enough. It's a huge part of the battle.
Yep. No, I couldn't agree more. And it's just like it's a scary thing to say for me, I think personally, but it's like it's okay not to know everything. Like that's kind of the double-edged sword, the blessing and the curse of this industry is like you're always learning something new, and if you're not, then you're falling behind. So it's like being able to be okay with making mistakes, or if it's like, hey, I need you to do this, it's like, all right, well, I don't know how, but like I'll do the research, I'll figure it out, like don't worry about it.
Yep. Yeah. But, I mean, there's always things that you don't know, so
it's crazy.
We're trying to figure out, if I could give you a list right now of a million things we don't know that we're trying to figure out to do a better job in digital.
Yep. That's it. It's constantly just learning. And every year it's like, as soon as you are satisfied with what you did, you fall behind the next day, the next week, the next year. Like it's so funny.
Or you like you're like, oh, I'm satisfied with what I did. And then you go to like the Pirates website and you're like, oh man, that looks so much better than something that we did. Like, how do we figure out how to do this better? And like, it's never ending. Social is always changing. Digital is always changing. There's always someone doing it better in some aspect of the business. I mean, we've had so many calls and, like we've connected each other with so many people over the years of like, hey, like, do you know anyone at the Mavs? Like they're doing something really cool on their ticketing landing page, or, hey, do you know someone at the Panthers? I'd love to talk to them about a video they did. And like, we just yeah, I mean, we talked to the Dolphins about their paid social and like
Oh
their
yeah.
strategy. I mean, there's so many teams that are doing such a good job in like these small pocket areas that you're like, maybe they're not doing something we want to do in one place, but they're like killing it in another. And it's just like you're just trying to like inch up to get to like the best you can be, but there's always more room to grow.
No, for sure. And it's cool too, where it's like this industry, it's so like it's so huge and there's so many people in it now, but it's also like it's kind of small where it's like you can reach out to anyone, like anyone that I've reached out to, whether it was, I reached out to probably 10 or 12 people in baseball when I was making the transition of just like, hey, I don't know you, but would you be willing to, jump on a call and just let me pick your brain about, baseball and like making content for baseball? Every single person was like, yeah, for sure. Like, here's my number, let's talk. And it's
It's
like,
so true.
it's so amazing to be able to learn because it's like we're all, yeah, we're different teams and in some cases competing against each other, but like we're all fighting the same fight together in different ways and we're set up different ways and there's different people in different positions, and it's like it's so cool to be able to rely on others where it's like I had a call, I think it was probably a few months ago, but guy who works for the Red Bull F1 team, and he's stationed over in England. And it's like,
Mhm.
we just connected on LinkedIn and talked for like an hour. And it's like, I don't know anything about F1, but it was like everything that he said, it was so cool and so interesting to learn, where it's like, it's so funny how big yet small the world is.
Totally. We were bought by Fenway Sports Group somewhat recently, and so like being able to meet up with the Red Sox people and the people in Liverpool and like their racing team, and there's so many now properties that we can talk to, and it's like, how are you guys doing this, and what was your strategy behind that, and where are you making your money from, and like what does that look like? It's it's really interesting. I've learned a lot, just from talking to people at Liverpool and the Red Sox and teams that are not operating maybe the same way as we are, but are trying a lot of similar things on digital. So
It's cool.
yeah, it's definitely been interesting, and like same kind of thing. Like I connected with Kelsey at the Red Sox like years and years ago. They had a Twitter vending machine, and I was like, "Whoa, we want a Twitter vending machine! Like,
Yeah.
what is this?" And I think Terry had connected me with her back in the day, and it's like now like years later I'm connecting with her and we're like reporting to the same people and the same
Right.
ownership, and like I'm like, hey, remember me? I'm like the Twitter vending machine girl. Like but yeah, it always comes back. So social and sports is definitely small
Yeah.
business for sure.
So funny. Well, I love soccer. I got into watching like a lot more soccer. I think it was right as like not mid-pandemic, but basically the first league that came back, like sports league, was like Serie A, like the Italian soccer league. So I
Hmm.
picked the team and just started watching, and so I'm a Juventus fan. But then it was
Okay.
like, but I love watching it so much. I was like, I need a Premier League team because I don't have one. So
Hmm.
I landed on Liverpool because I was like, oh, you know what?
No way.
I was like the owners of the Pens, my favorite team, also own Liverpool. They got to be good. I'm
Love
going
it.
with I'm going with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I went to a Fulham game a while back, and then a Chelsea game, and then like Liverpool became part of the Penguins family, and I ended up doing like a tour of their stadium. I was like, all right,
Oh,
Liverpool's
that's
gonna be
sweet.
my new team. Like I'm not a huge soccer watcher, but I mean the atmosphere of a
Oh,
European soccer game is unlike any other. So
it's crazy. I remember there was like I think it's in the same league as the Riverhounds, but there was a team in Phoenix as well. So we got tickets to go out to a game, and it's at like a tiny stadium, like nothing crazy. But the
yeah,
fans, it was like if we could have had that fan base watching the Cardinals, like dancing, celebrating the whole game, singing songs, like lighting off these like flares and like it was like the greatest thing I've ever seen.
that's
And
awesome.
I could only imagine in like, you know, out in Liverpool or, Man United, any of these, like how insane it must be to see that.
Totally.
All right. So last question before I get to some of these quick hitter goofy things. But so back to, those that are trying to get their foot in the door and they're applying for all of these different jobs, and there are
Hmm.
tons of jobs out there at different levels and different leagues, different locations. But, you being in a position where you've hired quite a few people, what can they do to stand out in that process? Like I link it back to what we do in content. Like in content, we're trying to make stuff that makes our users stop and watch. In the job process, you're trying to get the hiring manager to stop and look at your stuff. So how do they do that?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that stand out for me. If you're creative, absolutely you need a portfolio. So that's one of the big ones is we really look at your portfolio if you're coming on in a creative role. Um, I might not care as much about like your writing skills or how your resume looks in that instance, but I care a lot about that if you're applying for a job where you're writing. So, yeah, I think it also shows that you care if you're writing a cover letter. So I always look at that, even if it's simple, just like, okay, this person took enough time, to think about this and, really put a care and effort into this application rather than just like a mass blast of applications. And this one is just like along with the group. So I think those are some like initial things. I think, yeah, depending on the role, there's different things I would probably focus on, but um, I like creativity for sure. I don't think your resume needs to look all crazy, but I think if you're creative in your writing, like if you're creative in um, your work that you're sharing, like let's say you're creative in you're applying for like a design position or a video producer position, like I don't want to just see a highlight video where I'm not sure where you were involved. Like I want to know, okay, well, what parts of this were you doing? Maybe there's an animation. Did you make that animation? Did you shoot those photos? Did you concept the video or did you just like edit it together? And I think being clear on which parts of the creative process you're involved with and how you're contributing to the group and the team is helpful. I really like it when people have looked at our brand with like a real fine-tooth comb and said like, hey, like I see on game days you always post your game day graphic first thing in the morning with a game preview. Like I noticed 20 other teams in the NHL do something different with their first post on game day in the morning. Like, why do you guys do that? Or like, are you seeing success from that? Or have you considered maybe this instead? Like, if somebody is actually caring enough to look at our brand and take time, like, huge hurdle that you
Yeah.
have just cleared. Because that's what I need you to do as an employee. And until you're doing that, like, all you're doing is executing on tasks and you're not really contributing.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And I always tell everyone, like, the job description that you see for the job, like there's your cheat sheet from the hiring manager. Like if I'm hiring for a role, I'm writing exactly the perfect person that I need is in that job description. So
yep,
use it to your advantage. Like you don't have to, like, there's no rules that say, here's how a cover letter works and here's how a resume needs to look. It's like, use that cheat sheet as your guide for, putting your resume together. Use the same buzzwords that are in the job description, so it looks like you guys speak the same language in that regard. So lots of just
totally.
like little goofy things. And I can personally vouch for cover letters, because when I got the Steelers job, there were thousands of applicants. I was not the most experienced, but Scott Phelps, like we were talking about before, he told me later on, like, the cover letter was what got them to interview me. So it's
Hmm.
it's maybe that's just one time out of thousands of jobs I applied for, but like it worked once. It could it could work for you too.
I mean, it's an easy, like, if your resume doesn't look good and you didn't write a cover letter, I don't think you care.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
it
true.
might be an immediate no, even if you're really great.
Yeah.
And I think another one that I like hate is like if we think you are awesome and we're doing an interview process and we're going through and we're um talking to you and figuring things out. And then we get to the end of the interview and we're like, do you have any questions for us? And you're like, no. I hate that.
Yeah.
That makes me bonkers. How do you have no questions? Like, let's say you get this job. What's your first question when you
Right.
appear at work the first day? Like, you're going to have questions. There's a million questions you could be asking about our strategy and how we got here and what's an average day look like and what is the culture of the organization and what does a good employee look like? I mean, things that will set you up for your next round of interviews, if
Yep.
nothing else, right? Yeah, when we get to an end of an interview and somebody doesn't have questions, I die. A little piece of me dies
Yeah.
inside.
Well, I think like interviews have like they've had to have changed over the years too, right? Because like they used to be these stuffy, like, I think I've had interviews in the past that were very like formal and but it's like now that it's me doing the interview, it's not that way. It's like
Millennial interviews.
yeah, it's like I know like these are the questions that I need to ask to know that you know what you're talking about. Like you clearly have the experience that I'm looking for because I'm talking to you. So like now it's just figuring out like, did you just copy a bunch of buzzwords or do you know what you're talking about? And then it's like, but I think that like maybe kids still have that in their head of like this needs to be this like wear the tuxedo, be very stuffy, like if you ask questions it's like a sign of weakness that you don't know this stuff. But it's like, you just need to be, it's fine, like you have the opportunity to ask these questions to the person who's hiring you, who could be hiring you. Why would you not? And use them to your advantage where it's like you could impress someone who's hiring you with a good question rather than just talking about yourself.
I mean, let's say like you weren't even super like hyped about this job and you were just like, interviewing and trying to get your name out there and figure things out. If you're asking me a question, like let's say you're interviewing with the Penguins, but you really want to work for the Red Wings, like maybe that the Red Wings are always asking a certain question in their interviews that you want to hear what my answer is as an employee that's already doing it. Like, right? Like, so if
Yeah.
you say like, hey, like Andy, what brands do you follow? What brands do you think are doing the best in graphic design? Or where do you draw inspiration from? Then you have all of my knowledge so that you can go to that other interview and like use that stuff or
Yeah.
like look it up yourself and really form your own opinion. But I feel like not utilizing that time with somebody who's in the industry that you're interested in, even if it's like a question like that's not directly for like getting in and starting this job and it's like to just learn, like, yeah, do it.
That's like, it doesn't always have to be, like, well, how much is the pay? When would I
No.
start? Where do I live?
You'll always figure that stuff out later.
Yes, exactly. And that's like, so my favorite question that I now ask, I forget who I stole it from, someone very, very smart, much smarter than me, but it was like, what question didn't I ask in this interview that you wish I did? And then that's your chance to be like, okay, well now I can flex a little bit and share what I know. And then, so then when they say it, I'm like, okay, well, what's your answer? And then it's like, so giving them that platform of like, okay, well, you really want to talk about this, so talk about it. Like,
Yeah.
impress me. So, and some people, some people are so ready, and it's like, and again, like, not really a test, but kind of a test of like, you can think really quickly on your feet because in our jobs, you're going to have to. Like, if O'Neill Cruz hits a home run, like, you need copy immediately. And so, like, it's not.
Tristan Jari scores a goalie goal. Like it has never happened in team history. You're not
Yep.
prepared for that moment.
And you have to think on your feet. You have to think quickly. So it's like, even just that, where it's like someone will have like 2 or 3 different things that they'll get through. And some people just kind of stumble and like, oh, I don't know. I think you covered it all. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, guess we'll talk again soon.
Yep.
But all right. So to finish this all off, I have a couple just goofy questions, some pop culture, some industry related, and we can, you can answer them as quick or as slowly as you'd like. Starting with the hardest one. What's your least favorite industry buzzword?
Synergy.
That's a good one. I like that one.
I feel like maybe also when people talk about like we want it to be like or like authentic, but they're not talking, they're actually not authentic when you're
Yes.
saying it and you're like, no, no, this is not like organic authentic. This is like you trying to say authentic and this is totally branded crap.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't
I
like
love
that
that.
either.
That's a good one. I like both of those. Okay, so Parks and Rec or The Office?
I'm not like a huge fan of either one. Is that like a
Oh
everyone's gonna
man.
hate me now?
No, it's all right.
Um, I did work in Parks and Rec for a little while, like one of my internships. And so I feel like it's a little too close. Like
Yeah.
that was kind of like what it was like. So maybe I'll say The Office, especially because of the connection to Scranton and
There you
Wilkes-Barre,
go.
Scranton.
Yeah, that I feel like one of the people I talked to said that like her mom or dad worked in local government, so she was just
Hmm.
like it was Parks and Rec was just too much. I
Too
couldn't do it.
much. Yeah,
All right, Friends or Seinfeld?
Friends.
That's a tough one for me. First one, Parks and Rec for sure. Friends or
Yeah.
Seinfeld? I'm torn so hard. Cool Ranch or nacho cheese?
Mm. Depends on my mood.
Yeah, fair, fair. TikTok, Reels, or Shorts?
TikTok. I can't help it. I just scroll there forever.
It's yeah, it's amazing. I
It's
and
yeah.
it's so funny because like I'll have meetings with my team and they'll be like, "Did you see that trend of the?" And I'm like, "Nah." Like I saw these guys trading watches or like some guy building a cabin in the woods. Like I'm not. It's
We're
not
all seeing such different trends. It's so weird. It's like you
so
think you're having the
crazy.
same experience. I'm like, I've seen this trend like 100 times. How have you not seen this? And then
Yeah.
they're like, well, you've seen this. I'm like, no. Like we're living in totally different TikTok universes.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's so
It
funny.
is
All right, X or Threads?
X. But that's only because it's essential and threads. I'm like basically not even using it anymore.
Yeah. Oh man.
Um, but I also hate X in general and
Yes.
everything that is going wrong with the platform, like every day that I'm not anticipating.
Yeah. I think that's kind of a lose-lose choice at this point.
It's just like there are things that you're like, okay, here's my plan for the day, and then something will just break, and you're like, or change, and
Perfect.
it's like
Yeah.
no notice and no plan, and it's hard.
So fun. Google Plus or IGTV?
Neither.
I think that's fair. Vine or MySpace?
Oh, I feel like MySpace back in the day was like actually taught me how to like do internet things and like
Yeah.
was such a crazy place. So at the time I probably would have said MySpace, but now like Vine is like legend.
Oh
I
yeah.
love going back and looking at like old like Vine trends and stuff. Like I feel like Vine was like back like YouTube when it first started. It was like just crazy things that like everyone saw the same videos on Vine, not like
Yes.
TikTok. I could tell you and we would know all the same Vine videos.
That's true. It's very true. All right, last one. Rate the finale of Game of Thrones 1 to 10.
Oh, 3? It was so disappointing, but I loved the show so much. I feel like people hated on the whole last season, but I was like still so zoned in. But yeah, the ending of the whole show was like
Yeah.
really
Oh, man.
not what I wanted.
That's I have to watch it again. I think I just enjoyed the ride so much because like
Yes.
I caught on late, so like I watched like I think the first like 4 seasons just like back to back, and then I started watching them like Sundays for like season 5, and I think was 6 the last season. I can't remember.
6. I
Or
don't
8
remember
or
either.
I can't remember, but it was like so the last 2 seasons I like watched with the world, so I was just like so pumped to just
Just
be a
like
part
in
of
it.
it. Yeah, so then it was like once it ended I was like, yeah, that was fine. It was fine. But yeah,
I mean, I love that the whole world was basically like watching the same show at the same time. And I feel like that's like special, especially as like a social person, is like to see everybody in real time being creative and like creating content around the show. And like my friends would get together and watch it like live on TV. Like one was like, it's just so,
Yeah.
it feels so throwback,
Yeah.
you know?
It's wild. It's so wild.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I will let you go. I can't thank you enough. I know that everyone who's going to watch this, hopefully the millions of people that are going to watch this,
Millions.
same amount that watched the finale of Game of Thrones, will
Hmm.
be really really thankful for all the knowledge
Every
that you gave.
Pirates fan and Penguins fan will be here.
Yep, and the comments will be extra kind, I'm sure.
Sure, everyone will be very happy with both of our teams.
Super thrilled. Um, cool. Well, I can't thank you enough, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay, thanks.